The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back here on YouTube, a special VOD edition of the Nerdcast Empire. This is actually part number 2 of our 200th episode of the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio along with Mike. Great to have you along with us once again. If you're watching on the YouTube VOD, we'll have separate videos for the 200th episode. We'll have our music in one episode, and that will be in another video. And this video, we'll be talking about all things involving the 200th episode of the Nerdcast Empire. We're so grateful you've joined us for this journey. So let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about everything we've had for the last 30 months since back in mid-2023 when we got this thing started. It is the 200th episode of the Nerdcast Empire. For those of you who are on YouTube, on the VOD, of course, this is the second part of this episode, and this is obviously a different YouTube video than our first part of the podcast that we did live was involving our new music for the week. So if you want to check that out and you're on YouTube, on the VOD, you're going to want to go to a different video. This video is going to be talking about the Nerdcast Empire at 200 episodes as of tonight. We started this thing all the way back on July 29th, 2023. Technically, that is when our first episode aired, and we actually recorded those episodes a week or so before. We sat down and recorded 4 episodes in that first run. And, you know, I think maybe that's the first thing to talk about, because there could be people tuning in, and maybe we'll get some clips out of this. The people looking to figure out how to start a podcast, because that always comes up. How do you start a podcast? And the real answer to it is you just start one. Like, you just do it, because we spent a lot of time, and I hate to use the term wasted a lot of time, but we spent a lot of time not doing it.
Yeah.
And now that we've done it, you know, we've really come a long way, but it's kind of our thought process, kind of the way we've done all this has changed so much since back in mid-2023.
Now, did we go to Anime Midwest or something that year, and it was kind of on the heels of that we decided to finally start doing this?
It could have been.
Because I feel like that's usually when that idea presents itself, is on the way back from a convention. I can't remember, though.
Yeah, I don't remember when the planning actually started, because obviously we had talked about it a lot. Was 2023 also the first year we went to Animazement? Because we didn't go in 25, but we went back-to-back years, so I think it would have been 23 and 24.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Went. And I think that
might have been it then.
Have been the impetus to actually get us going, because that was just such an amazing event. And it really kind of reinvigorated my love for anime conventions, because you had everything that was going on with OhioCon, and to some degree is still going on with OhioCon. You've got MatsuriCon, which is a solid convention, but it never feels like amazing. It's just there. And others that we go to from time to time. But Animazement in 23, for our first trip to Raleigh, which was also just really cool to go there, it kind of changed our mindset of, like, there really is something out there for people our age, and we can, if we create stuff for that age group, people will actually find it.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think, kind of to your point about the OhioCon thing, I think that was something that even before the big issue with OhioCon came about, I think there were years coming back where you're just like, something seems missing. I don't know. There's something that, how do I engage with this in a different way that I'm getting something out of it, and I don't feel like I'm just going there to go to the dealer room and spend money, because, you know, without some of those signature events, and even with them, you were looking at the rest of the weekend and thinking, I don't engage. This doesn't feel like me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think, you know, it became something where it just felt like they had kind of just, they're punching the clock every year. It's like, we're just going to do the same thing. And the events were the highlight. And as soon as those people stopped coming because of all the fallout, the con itself got exposed pretty quickly as to something that was very lackluster at best. And so, you know, it just didn't feel like that to-do thing. But it will, you know, credit does need to go to OhioCon, to Anime Midwest, to some of these other events, because that's kind of those events that finally got us motivated, and we'd go home and get on social media and post like, hey, we're going to do this thing. Like, we got something really cool coming. And then it wouldn't happen. You know, 6 weeks later, 3 weeks later, we've just kind of devolved back into the daily routine of...
It's easy to do.
Yeah, it is, because life is busy, and you have to make time for the things you want to do. If you don't, nobody's going to like grab you by the hand and say you should do this podcast or you should do streaming, or you have to be the one to kind of take that step forward. And I think for anybody out there listening as to, man, I really want to do this creative thing, but I can't. I don't know where to start. Sometimes it's just start. Sometimes it's just jump in to the deep end with no plan. I mean, we had a little bit of a plan, but because the one thing I want to emphasize to listeners who might be thinking about that is the podcast, which has become what it has become, 200 episodes, and we get a pretty steady following both live and on the VODs. It was really never the end goal. Like, it wasn't like we're going to do a podcast. Like, that's not really, like, it was a step, but the goal was to try to do creative stuff, whether it's streaming video games, whether it's making videos, whether it's travel videos, whether it's whatever. The podcast was really just that flag in the ground to say we're starting. We're doing something creative.
Something has been established.
Yeah, because I think until we had that thing that we could hang our hat on and say we have started this, all that other stuff was never going to happen because it just seemed too big and too daunting to really jump into.
And I also think even now, 2.5 years in, this is still very much in its infancy.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know if there ever is an end stage. I think it's constantly changing and moving, and we're coming up with different things we want to do. For me, it's just always been, how do I re-engage with these things that I enjoy, and how do I keep myself on it? And that's kind of what this has done for me. Even when we're not regularly covering anime and gaming and wrestling, I'm now in a position where I feel like I'm interacting with those on a regular basis, almost in a systemic way, so that I'm always ready to talk about them. And I think when I look back at where I was in 2023, I wasn't doing a lot of any of that. And now it's every season I'm listing the anime that I finished, and I'm tracking what I'm watching. And it's given me the ability and kind of the motivation to put systems in place so I'm actually doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And Chris brings up a good point, too. The fact that the things we're doing and the way we're doing it have changed so much, and we're still kind of at that stage where what we want to do for 2026 is going to be different. We've already got some things in mind. There are other things that maybe we don't even realize yet. But I think the part of doing this is we're going to go at this thing 100 miles an hour. And then, in 6 weeks, in 12 weeks, we're going to look back at the thing we've been doing for 6 weeks and say, is this the best way to do this? Should we move this direction? We've done that several times. And I think, each time I think it's made things better.
Yeah.
I think it makes the product better. I think it makes the process of doing it better. And at the same time, just like, I'm going to rearrange my office this week. I think at some point you feel like you got to make another zag just to keep it interesting. And I think, like you said, I think trying to stay engaged with all the things that are a part of the Nerdcast Empire, more than just music. It's anime, it's video games, it's the things that kind of tie it all together. That's kind of one of those things when I make a list of things I want to do in 2026 is kind of get back to talking about those other things.
Yeah.
And do it in some sort of format. I don't know what that format is. Is it setting up the stream and doing it? Is it doing a YouTube video? Is it doing a TikTok? I don't know, like whatever it might be. But I do feel like that's kind of that next step is to figure out what that looks like and just go after it 100 miles an hour and then figure out in a few weeks whether that was the right direction to go or if we're now 100 miles off course and we need to turn around and go back the other direction.
The thing is, and kind of to both of your points, is that until you start doing something, you can't make those next decisions.
Yeah.
Like until you're moving, you can't decide to turn one direction or another. You're just standing still. And every change that we've made from 2.5 years ago to now has been an informed decision based on what we've done prior. So
yeah.
I think getting started on something is the only way to get anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal. And that's why, we've started a Discord. That's kind of been maybe our most recent technological step forward, was really kind of pushing that. We don't engage with it, and I don't engage with it in the general channel as much as I should. That's another kind of focus in the new year, is to get back to trying to build that up more, get more people involved, have more chats in the open channels, not just in our admin channel. Kind of doing stuff like that to get it more engaged. I think individual streaming is definitely on the board for the year. I think more of that we do, the better. The more audience we build individually, the better our audience is going to come together. And just coming up with new ideas for things and just saying, you know what, let's do that. Let's try it out and not just be stuck in our ways of, well, this is what we do every week. So, it's not like Pinky in the Brain. Like, what are we going to do? Same thing we do every week. Like,
well, you kind of mentioned it with conventions and it just feeling like that they're just, punching the time clock and getting it over with. You don't want to feel that way when you're doing anything creative in general. Like even with this podcast, you never want it to feel like this is just the routine. This is what we do every week. No, there should be a certain excitement to get to do it every week.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I feel like about the point where I get restless is the point where we have to pivot and do something different. And I think that's kind of what we're doing with the music podcast and what we hope with our other topic areas. And we mentioned our other topic areas. I think, I don't really necessarily want this episode to be a year in review because it really isn't. It's 30 months of review of kind of what we've done, but
much more all-encompassing.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, and we'll just briefly kind of look through our 3 other topic areas and talk about what has happened to them since we started this podcast. And we can start with anime because I think it's the most maybe interesting one in the fact that, like, there are some things that are very much exactly the same as where they were 30 months ago as far as the companies that are out there who are streaming anime and the volume of anime you get every quarter is just an insane amount. I was looking through the list of releases even that they have so far in 2026 listed, which certainly isn't everything, but it's just an insane amount of stuff every month. And yet it does feel like we're getting to a crossroads on this stuff because it feels like maybe you're having the whole, obviously we had the debacle with AI dubbing that came out. We've had, issues with regular dubs and kind of how they're handled. It does feel like we're kind of going back to the future as far as people preferring subtitles, not just in anime, but I think in media in general. Part of it is because none of us can hear anymore, so we have to be able to read, and part of it is because they're just kind of, it helps you kind of keep up with the episode. But it's an interesting spot where the anime world is, I think, compared to where we came off of that Animazement convention back in June and July of 2023.
Yeah, I think part of it for me is I don't really want to be involved in the discussion around the AI and the localization. So if just sticking to subtitles keeps me away from that side of it, I think that's really the path of least resistance for a fan.
And unfortunately, we've seen AI pop into subtitles too, which is definitely not a finished product and not a good solution to actually having a human being translate this stuff.
And that's really the only hope you can have as a fan is that they get it figured out before it goes live on a wide scale.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen. It's just, let's get it as close to ready for prime time as we can.
Yeah, for sure. But, the anime world's in an interesting spot, and there's a ton of big shows coming out in 2026. Like, for all the, you wondering, like, where it's come. Like, it feels like we're about to have a monster year coming up, and it'll be interesting to see how some of these are received, especially shows that have changed providers. I think the biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head is Oshi no Ko has moved from High Dive over to Crunchyroll, which disappoints me a little bit. Not that I'm sure it'll be fine, but I'm just disappointed for High Dive, who I've kind of been rooting for in all this, the Sentai people.
It feels like Gurren Lagann all over again.
It does. It does. And it's a shame because as far as I can tell, they haven't done anything wrong with it. I think the dub has been really good. The subtitle releases have been really good. I guess the difference will be, I think, and I could be wrong on this, I feel like with the subtitles, they may have been releasing them after the season was over. Like they had the whole season, or the dub, I should say. They weren't like week to week keeping up with it. I can't remember, but for some reason, I feel like that was the thing with High Dive. Obviously, Crunchyroll. I
feel like that could be because some of the High Dive shows I've watched subtitled because the dubs were. I think, is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon?
Yeah.
the dub was slow on that, and I watched it subtitled.
So I would presume that with Crunchyroll taking it over, the dub will be a little more immediate after the subtitled episode. We'll see. I don't know, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what's on your mind as far as the anime goes.
I try to plot out what I want to watch going into each season just to kind of get an idea of where my time's going to go. But just kind of thinking as far back as when we started this, in 2023, I wasn't really watching a whole lot of new anime or anything. I was going to conventions a few times a year and just not recognizing any characters.
Yeah.
And it just, I just was having trouble devoting the time to it. And it was really when we decided to start talking about it that I was like, man, I need to get knowledgeable. I need to feel like I'm engaged with what we're talking about. So, I went from not watching a whole lot for years to, just looking at how I track everything. In 2024, I finished 26 anime or seasons of current anime because that's kind of how I track it. And then in this year, I'm looking at 31 right now with a few more that I'm going to finish in the last few days of this year. So I'm definitely picking up the pace. I'll probably end up at about 650 episodes for this year. I had 440 something last year, so I'm excited about it. I found some kind of random things that I've really enjoyed. This past year, Catch Me at the Ballpark was really cool. 2 years ago, I went through and watched all of Fushigi Yugi, a longer show that I really enjoyed. So I think, like anything else, if you sit down and actually devote the time to it, you're going to find those things that you kind of wish you had watched years ago, and that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, and I feel like I have gotten away from watching anime regularly. That's on the list of to-do things for both this next week that I'm off work and 2026. I have a rather large stack behind me, some of which I've watched, but now have the Blu-ray version of. Others I have not. But I want to get back to that because I felt like that was something I was doing really well almost before this podcast began, is watching a lot of random things, picking up a show that was just like, nobody's talking about this, I'm going to watch this, and I really enjoyed it. I've fallen off of that, so that is one of my goals. And, there are a couple really big shows coming up this year that are shows that I have watched. We mentioned Oshinoko Season 3 comes out in January. Classroom of the Elite Season 4 comes out in April, and to me, those are two of the best anime that I've watched over the past probably 5 to 10 years.
People don't talk about Classroom of the Elite.
And they should. I don't know why, because that is honestly the first. And is it an amazing show? Maybe not. But is it really good? Yeah, like it is. And it's so different than so much of the stuff that's out there, especially for a classroom show, which, you feel like every trope's been done with that. That was so different to me, and I've enjoyed the first 3 seasons of that, and I'm excited for a season 4. So I'm hoping that these shows that I'm really looking forward to will get me back in the rhythm of watching all the stuff that I need to watch still.
The show has substance. It's not just someone being reincarnated or something.
Yeah.
So many shows seem to be that at this point.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of those things that definitely kind of interesting keeping up with. And but again, that's one of the many things on the list for 2026 for me, is to get back into that habit of watching, 3, 4, 5 shows a season and really staying locked into what's out there. So
yeah, I put together a list of 5 things for winter of 2026 without a whole lot of effort. We got Hell's Paradise Season 2, great show. Fire Force Season 3, Part 2. Hell Teacher Nube Part 2. Slime Movie 2. Dangers in My Heart movie. I mean, that's just scratching the surface, and there are a lot of things that I kind of want to get caught up on so I can enjoy current iterations. I've been wanting to watch Golden Kamuy for a while.
Yeah.
That's going to be ending, I think, this year or next year. New Gundam movie. I got so much Universal Century Gundam to catch up on.
For sure.
Frieren, I'd like to start that. I'd like to get caught up in Oshinoko, Jujutsu Kaisen. There's a lot out there.
There is, and I think all that stuff sounds like it would be really good, and there's just a ton. I had one that popped into my head there, but I lost it for a minute. But another big show that's coming out, or movie that's coming out this year. I did see they announced a Kaguya-sama movie, I think, or some sort of OVA, OAV type event coming out this year, which would certainly be really good. So Yeah, it was a lot of stuff, and certainly our hope is that we will both. I will try to match Mike's pace, or at least come close to it, and we'll get back to having a weekly anime show of some kind pretty soon, early in 2026. We'll kind of figure out schedule wise when that needs to happen and what form it needs to take. Because again, I think that's still up for debate.
And something to consider, and I don't know if we can all get involved in this, how easy that would even be just to pick one show a season that all of us watch.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
That way we get together and actually talk about the same show.
Yeah.
On a podcast. I think that could really work.
Yeah, for sure. So, we'll definitely look at that as we look forward to anime and have looked back kind of on where it's come. But we do have another ad break. This will probably be our final ad break on Twitch. So we encourage you to stick through this 90 seconds. Of course, you can subscribe to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Nerdcast Empire. Then you won't get ads. But if you want to just hang out, we're just going to chat a little bit during the ad break. And we will come back with video games, and then we'll wrap it up with pro wrestling. So that'll be coming up after this final 90-second ad break of the episode. So stick around, and now that ad break is underway. Yeah, looking at just the stuff that's coming out that's already listed. Another Fate show coming out, Fate Strange Fake, starting in January the 3rd. MF Ghost Season 3 coming out on January the 4th. We'll run down a few other ones. My Hero Academia Vigilante Season 2, January the 5th. Some other ones as we roll down this list here. You've mentioned most of the big ones anyway. We'll see as I scroll down this list.
I was watching a video yesterday of like under the radar, underrated shows from this past year, and they talked about Medalist being really good.
Oh, interesting. Actually, January 25th is when Season 2 of that will come out. Ace of Diamond Act 2, Season 2 comes out in April.
You know, again, this isn't a year in review thing necessarily, but man, Ace of Diamond has been the best thing I've watched all year.
Nice.
Like, I can't recommend it enough to people. I'm so excited that I'll be done with Act 2, Part 1 before the spring, and the next one comes out.
ReZero Season 4 comes out in April. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Season 4 Part 1. The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten Season 2. That's an April show as well. They've already got some summer stuff. Bleach 1,000 Year Blood War comes out in July. That's Part 4. The Detective Is Already Dead, Season 2 coming out. Apothecary Diary, Season 3, Part 1 coming out in October.
Also a great show.
And we don't cover manga a lot, but for those who are into manga, the big story, I guess it's not just the manga, but also the anime, One Piece moving to a seasonal format. So they will not have any new One Piece coming up in this January season. It will come back in April. So certainly a huge change for that long-running show as well. I kind of want to tie video games into this because Chris mentioned video games in the chat, talking about feeling very similar about video games as you talked about with anime. Video game world is interesting. We could spend longer than a whole segment talking about it. So we won't kind of go into the whole issues with the video game industry, maybe in depth like we might on a dedicated podcast. But it is interesting where video games are. Retro is still in. I don't think that's changed in the 30 months we've been doing this podcast. If anything, it's gotten stronger.
Yeah.
There are still games I play. I was just playing Baseball Simulator on my computer before we did this podcast. I think the retro market, both new retro and old retro, going to continue to be hot. It's just interesting. It just feels like nobody has learned their lesson in 30 months yet. Well, some people have. But it feels like, by and large, the industry is still trying to peddle these incomplete, high-value games that people are, in some cases, turning off of almost immediately.
Yeah, I don't know why, but they seem totally content on spending way too much money to produce video games, which will never make that money back, which then in turn means that we're going to have more and more layoffs, companies being acquired. I don't know when or how long it's going to take for them to realize this isn't sustainable. It hasn't been for a while. I think of my own gaming at this point. I'm just kind of a retro gamer. The games I'm most excited about, even the new ones, typically end up being the HD 2D remakes or other style remake of older title. I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics had their remake. I thought that was really good. I've been playing Dragon Quest games for the majority of this past year, and even going back to the year before with Dragon Quest Monsters. Like, one thing I want to get out of the habit of, and I really want to focus on it in 2026, is just not paying for games anymore.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need for me to pay top dollar for a game that I mean, my backlog's ridiculous. I want to focus on it. And if new games come out that I might be interested in, give it some time and see what I can get them for months down the road, because it's not worth what we're paying. Not that games shouldn't be expensive, because they should, but I don't like that proposition right now.
Yeah, I think the value doesn't line up with what is being charged in a lot of cases. I think when you have a game that comes out that actually proves to be a good value proposition, then I think people will buy it, even if it is $100, $120. I just think there's too many things with that price tag on there right now that are not complete games, or they require, so much work to get it to a playable state. The other thing that needs to go away in 2026, which won't, is games should not have to require internet connection if you're not playing an online version of the game.
Yeah.
It's stupid that I bought the new college football game when it came back. I bought a PS5 really specifically to play college football, but I couldn't play it because I had to buy a router first so that I could upgrade the internet to the PS5, because I had to be online to play this college football game that I'm never going to play online play with. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, that's a weird one, and I think every gamer of whatever genre you're into have encountered that at some point up to this point. I remember the first time was it Diablo 3 was the first Diablo game where they were just like, nope, you got to have a Battle.net login, you got to get online to play it. It was just like, why? Like, I played Diablo 1 on a computer that was rarely ever online at all with a CD-ROM. What are we doing this for? And I understand where we are today. Games constantly need updated, but to me, it's also like a window into, if you're not online, how can we sell you more stuff while you're playing?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but yeah, some games just shouldn't require that.
And I think if you're making a game and it's not the most amazing game that's ever been made, it had better be something that people want to stream, because those are the games that are ranking money right now. Yeah. Games like Peak, games like RV There Yet, even games like Buckshot Roulette still getting played. People get online and play hours of GeoGuessr, literally just Google Maps, which I enjoy the heck out of, but that's not even it is a game. Like, there was work but that's just maps. It's just knowing where things are on a map. Yeah. Like, if you can't beat that experience, that little bit of serotonin that I get from finding the street in Bangladesh and figuring out that it's there and not India or somewhere like that. Like, if you can't beat that with your $120 game, then I'm sorry, your company's going to go out of business eventually.
And don't then villainize me for not paying for it.
Yeah.
If I have other avenues for enjoyment, it's not my fault when I don't buy Concord or the new Dragon Age. That's just, you're clearly not creating something that's enticing enough for players at large. That's on you.
Yeah.
I think we need to get out of this mindset of, well, no, it's the gamers that are at fault here. They're the ones that should be buying your. No, like, that's not how the process works. It's, I have my money, I'm going to spend it on something that I want to spend it on. If you're not making that, it's not the system messed up. It's not anything like that. It's just you're not doing your job right.
Imagine if music took that same vantage point. Like, I made this CD, and because I'm Metallica, you have to buy it. Like, it doesn't matter that we changed our sound and banged on, whatever Lars was banging on in the same anger. Like, you have to buy this album because you're not a fan if you don't. You're not a real music connoisseur. Like, no, bands have to be accountable to their fans, or they have to be okay with not selling records if their stuff's not very good. That's the way it works, and it has to work that way in everything, and video games are no exception to that. So, interesting where it is, but it does feel like, some people have learned, but a lot of people are in the same place they were in 30 months ago when we started this podcast.
Yeah, and it doesn't even need to be contentious. It's either if I want to buy it, I'll buy it. If I'm not going to trash you for making a game I don't want to buy, because at the end of the day, I don't care. I'm going to find something I enjoy. It's not the vocal critics you got to worry about. It's the people like me who just don't show up.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, as we talk about, and we're going to talk about with wrestling here in a moment, not everything has to be for me, and I'm okay with that. If there's a group of people that love playing that $120 title, great. That's awesome. Like, you know, I'm never going to tell somebody how to get their entertainment. Just don't think I'm going to get it if it's, you know, if I don't feel like it's worth my money. So I'll just keep playing Heroes of Might and Magic 3 over and over again, and keep doing that. But last thing we'll talk about before we sign off on this 200th episode, part 2 if you're watching on YouTube, part 1 if you're watching us live, is pro wrestling. And you know, this is such an interesting topic that probably deserves more than the time we're going to give it, but this will kind of be the short version. Maybe we'll do a longer version of it at some point. But, you know, when we started this podcast, I think we were thinking WWE was just, maybe in its golden era of television, like it was just entertaining every week. It was so much better than what Vince was giving us in the late days.
Well, even in 2.5 years, we've been on a roller coaster.
We have. And that's the thing as you look back. And to the point where we don't even really do pay-per-view recaps anymore because, man, there have been some of those pay-per-views, not really any fault of the wrestlers. And that's the thing I really want to make clear from the beginning of this. The critiques that I have about WWE's product have nothing to do with the in-ring competitors. Like, I feel like their in-ring competitor level, as far as the talent, has probably never been better.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the number of ads in a pay-per-view, the structure of your weekly television show that generally makes it boring and hard to sit through, the just bombardment of selling me your stuff, selling me other stuff. Like, I'm just stunned with how my perception of their main roster product has gone downhill, and has nothing to do with the issues I had with Vince where his product was unwatchable. It's just everything around the stuff that happens in the ring is just by and large a waste of time.
You found new ways to kill my interest.
Yes.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need that many ads. I don't need every other ad to be about Riyadh season. I don't care about any of that. I'm not excited for the Royal Rumble next year.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. You know, meanwhile, there are positives. NXT has managed to maintain my interest.
Yep.
The partnership with TNA is still going great.
Yep.
You know, AAA, ever since WWE acquired it, it's got a little more polish now, but it's still super entertaining, and none of those are bloated the way that Raw, SmackDown, and mainline pay-per-views are.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, AAA might be the promotion of the year. Like, as crazy as that sounds.
Don't tell Dave that CMLL isn't, because he'll get upset.
I don't care about CMLL. Like, good for them. Like, but AAA has always been a guilty pleasure. Like, because it's just a car wreck, and you know, but there would always be at least one match of the night you could point to and say, hey, that was really great. And the rest of it was just kind of entertainment.
It was just insane, but hilarious.
Now it's like you've just kind of smoothed all that out, but you still have a lot of the stuff that made AAA great. And now you have this polish level on top. I would argue that the most recent pay-per-view event, which it wasn't a pay-per-view, it was on YouTube for free, may have been the best premium live event of the year.
It was a blast.
Absolutely. Just fun from beginning to end. It was 8 matches that lasted like 2.5 hours at most. And it was great. And
if that had been Survivor Series, that would have been a 6-hour show. Just
with 3 hours of ads.
Yeah.
I mean, it's especially bad now because you have this ad counter on the screen that tells you how long these ad breaks are. So you see when they put a 4-minute ad in there. And then it's not just the 4-minute ad. It's the minute of ad / self-promotional stuff before the ad break, and then a minute on the other side of it. Like, there were times where there was 10, 15 minutes between the ending bell of the previous match and the ringing bell of the next match. That's outrageous. Like, if your whole point of going down to 4 or 5 matches in a pay-per-view was so you could put in an hour of commercials in a pay-per-view, that's unacceptable.
Not a fair trade.
No. Like, that's not enjoyable at all. And it's like, I just don't know. I mean, I know why, because, and that's the thing, you know, when I was making the note, about WWE for this discussion is, has there ever been a company who is succeeding more and yet feels like a giant failure more than WWE? Because they're selling out big events. They're going to probably make who knows how much money from moving the Royal Rumble to Saudi Arabia.
They're charging crazy amounts for tickets, and people are buying them.
People are buying them. The Cena retirement tour did really well despite its roller coaster ride. They got it right at the end, just in time.
Yeah, that almost harkened back to the Vince era where you just felt like one stupid decision creatively nearly ruined everything.
Yeah.
And, Cena deserved better than that. The viewers certainly did.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm blown away with how mediocre their TV is again. And again, not because of having 2-minute matches or having, disqualification after disqualification or the other issues that have plagued it over the years.
There will be good wrestling on the show.
There will be, and you'll get that, but it's sitting through all the other junk. And it used to be you had backstage segments that filled that gap. And as much as I complained about them, at least they were relevant to the product. These long ad breaks that are just inescapable. And like you said, NXT has been able to avoid that, probably because they're on network television. They only have so much ad space. It's hard to sit through WWE's products, and their pay-per-view events are just hard to watch.
It's hard to sit through them when the next day you can pull up YouTube and they'll have uploaded like a 15-minute video giving you the highlights.
Yeah.
Like clearly that's how you want me to eat your content now.
You do. And it's crazy because like I said, I still should feel really good about WWE's product because their talent level is great. Punk return has been great. Yeah. Obviously feel bad for Seth Rollins getting hurt. Dealing with that again. Hopefully he'll be back in 2026.
You feel like they're starting to do right by some of their younger stars too.
Yeah.
Hayes winning the mid-card title was good.
Yep. Javon Evans, obviously they're positioning him to be a big star. He wrestled Gunther at one of the holiday house shows.
Yeah.
So clearly that's a big deal. Joe Hendry appears to be headed for SmackDown. They've done well with carrying over his level of comedy, which is important, especially when you're going to have 3 hours of SmackDown again. Speaking of people who haven't learned anything. Why we're going back to 3 hours of SmackDown.
You also have Sol Ruka and Obafemi, who are both going to be huge.
Yeah, the fear is that is anyone going to be left to watch them once they get to that point? Are we just going to keep driving people away with these incessant ad breaks?
And we've also talked about it in regards to AEW because for a while they were watching their numbers plummet was entertaining, and obviously the expectations are different, but you still got to wonder. Is Netflix getting what they want out of Raw?
Is Netflix getting what they want? Is ESPN getting what they want out of the pay-per-view events? USA seems to be perfectly happy. To me, like USA, and maybe it's this whole move going back to 3 hours of SmackDown, kind of feels like they're just sitting on the sidelines waiting for these other deals to fail.
To get them back as a discount.
To get them back at a discount as a package deal somewhere down the line. I could be wrong, but it kind of feels that way. And I don't know. And CW maybe is the only one that's probably thrilled because NXT's drawing great numbers compared to whatever was on that network.
I'm sure.
And they've had great crossovers with their NASCAR races and college football and stuff like that. So to me, that partnership's done great. TNA, feel great for them.
Got a TV deal.
They got a TV deal. They're in a great spot. Their partnership continues with WWE. So I think there's a lot to be happy about, but at the same time, and I feel like AEW fans are pleased with the direction of their product, maybe for the first time in a couple of years. Again, I don't watch it, but it feels like coming out of the pay-per-view, it felt like a lot of the reviews I saw on it were solid as far as their fans go. So
giving MJF the title can't be a bad move.
No, but because, he's the guy that has to put over your next big baby face. So now it's figuring out who that is and going from there. So I think that's a good move for them. And it's one of those things I've talked about. Part of me, because I've been so turned off with WWE, wants to sit down for a month and just watch AEW television just to see, is this as bad as it sounds? Is it as hard to watch as Raw and SmackDown is? Because the bell-to-bell product's not going to be as interesting, but at least there's not going to be 20, 30, 40 minutes of ads an hour.
More of it should be relevant and not advertising at the very least.
So I don't know. And then obviously Wrestle Kingdom's coming up. Obviously the retirement of Tanahashi is the big storyline there, wrestling Okada. It's kind of sad to see him go, especially kind of where the company is now compared to as excited as I was about it a few years ago.
Yeah, they got pretty much strip mined to oblivion, and I don't watch it regularly anymore, so I don't know how their next crop of young lions have done. But at the time, I wasn't really super excited about any of them.
I saw there's talk that David Finlay may be looking stateside again. To me, either company would probably make sense. Obviously, with Fit working in WWE, you would think he at the very least knows.
And his brother, too, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the Chase U students.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Rogan or whatever his name is.
I don't know. He has another name. Did they give him a NXT name? Or
yeah, they did.
I can't remember what it's.
Uriah something. Is he one of them?
Maybe. Yeah, so that's a possibility, but at the very least, he knows what to expect.
Uriah Connors.
There we go. So I forgot that they had done that, but yeah, it'll be really interesting, and I would like to get back to where I'm excited to talk about wrestling again. But
Chase University has a Wikipedia page.
What has happened to Chase U is
Cale
also,
Dixon and Uriah Connors are the two dudes. I don't remember their names.
Yeah, that's a storyline that unfortunately has kind of run its course, but I don't know what else they're going to do with Andre Chase. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But overall, like as we kind of wrap up this lengthy episode for those who have hung on with us live, but also in the VOD couple of episodes, looking back 200 episodes of all of this, like it's been a lot of work that goes into it. I think people don't realize how much work goes into this. And I think whatever we do going forward, I want to try to hopefully find a way to both streamline the work it takes to do this podcast, but also be able to reallocate some resources toward covering some of the other things or doing YouTube videos or things like that. And I think the next, few weeks will be about figuring out the right format for that and just going after it.
Yeah, like I said, it's constantly evolving. I think there are new ideas we're having on a daily basis. It's just a matter of how do we fit them in, how do we make it work.
Yeah, and I think we'll get that figured out. And again, we encourage you to join the Discord because, not only do we want your ideas, but if there are people that would be interested in being a contributor in some form or fashion with this, we would love to have you. I think the more voices, the better. I think, as much as, we enjoy this chat every week, I think the more opinions that are brought in, the more voices we have on this podcast, the better it is. So if you're interested in doing some stuff with us, our door's open. Let us know and reach out to us, and if you just have ideas you want to see and hear from us in 2026, let us know, and we'll do our best to incorporate them in there. But that is going to wrap up this massive episode, number 200 of the Nerdcast Empire. With a huge thank you to everybody who has listened, whether you've listened live or on the VOD over these past 30 months of this, and we're going to keep pushing along. And I don't know where we're going next, but we'll figure out where we're going to get there, how we're going to get there, and head that direction. But a huge thank you to everybody. Huge thank you to Stoke Lake Media for their continued support of our podcast. It's been a fun journey, and we're looking to, as Mike said, it feels like we're only just getting started. So we're excited to see where it goes from here. Hopefully you will join us along that ride. A big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. A big thanks to Shane for his contribution again this week. Big thanks to Mike, as always, for his hard work on this podcast. And a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you're listening to us. We'll be back regular time next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be music from December, but we may have to start combining weeks. So join us and find out what we talk about next week on the Hard Rock Empire. But until then, for the entire crew, I'm Matt saying so long, saying Happy New Year, and don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.